How Joseph Smith probably proposed to his plural wives. Levi, I desire your niece Fanny, my adopted daughter who has been living in our home, to become my spiritual wife. So go and talk to her parents. Lucinda, thank you for letting my family and I live with you these 2 months. I desire you as my spiritual wife. I'm sure your husband won't mind. Louisa, an angel appeared and commanded that I marry you. But it is highly secretive, so you shall have to dress as a man during the ceremony so as not to be recognized. Zina, I know you are 7 months pregnant and happily married, but an angel commanded me to marry you. Dimmick, I desire to marry your sister Presendia, and I will offer you any reward if you help me to obtain her. Agnes, seeing as your husband, who is also my brother, died 5 months ago, it is my duty to marry and take care of you. Never mind the evidence that Don Carlos was entirely opposed to the spiritual wifery. Sylvia, I recognize that your husband is a good member of the church, but I desire to take you as my spiritual wife. Mary Elizabeth, I never told you this, but before you were married to your husband Adam, in fact when you were 16 years old, God commanded that I marry you. But I was afraid and put it off, but I can put it off no longer. An angel came to me 3 times and threatened to destroy me if I did not marry you. You were mine before the foundations of the world, and all the devils in hell should never get you from me. Patty, as I have married your daughter Sylvia, you understand the correctness of the spiritual wifery. I desire to have you as a wife as well. Perhaps you can help me convince these other women of the correctness of the thing. Nancy, I know that your husband is currently serving a mission, but I received a revelation in your behalf that I will conveniently never canonize. Let my handmaid, Nancy Miranda Hyde, hearken to the counsel of my servant Joseph, in all things whatsoever he shall teach unto her. Now, let me teach you about spiritual wifery. Elizabeth, although you are 50 years old, I desire to take you as my spiritual wife. Now, help me convince the Partridge girls to marry me. Sarah Cleveland, thank you for letting my family and I stay with you and your husband after I was released from prison. I desire you as a spiritual wife. I even have a lot picked out for you in Nauvoo. Delsina, I am aware that your husband Lyman just recently passed away, and I feel it is my duty to take care of you as my spiritual wife. Eliza, I know as your prophet, your heart is set to my bidding, and I desire to have you as my spiritual wife. But don't tell Emma, she might push you down the stairs. Sarah Ann Whitney, I am pleased that you and your husband Newell have entered into the Holy Order. Now I must tell you that I was strictly charged by an angel to take you as my spiritual wife. The most profound secrecy must be maintained concerning our marriage. We will make beautiful posterity together. Martha, I am aware that your husband Vincent passed away last month. He was a dear friend to me. I will take it upon myself to be your spiritual husband. Ruth, I want to thank you and your husband Edward for opening your home to me after I was on the run from the law for supposedly killing Lilburn Boggs. I desire to have you as my spiritual wife. Flora, at the ripe age of 16, I desire to have you as one of my spiritual wives. And if I catch you trying to court other men closer to your age, I shall be very cross. Emily, if you will not betray me, I will tell you something for your benefit. I will give you a letter explaining spiritual wifery and propose to you. Never mind, Emma, and you must burn the letter after you read it. Also, I forbid you from talking this matter over with anyone. Eliza Partridge, I have something very important I wish to tell you. Oh, your sister Emily already talked to you? I see you are depressed by this news. But you will receive a witness by and by that spiritual wifery is indeed from God. And don't be alarmed if I have to marry you again later. It's just for Emma's sake. She's struggling so hard to keep the commandments of God. Benjamin, you know well the parable of the talents, that should a man have talents, more will be given him. Well, I desire your sister Almira as my spiritual wife. I want you to go and teach the principle to her. My brother Hiram will help explain things to her. She will live with me as my wife. Lucy, as my adopted daughter living in our home, and with your father away on his mission, God has commanded that you marry me. If you reject this message, the gates of heaven will be closed forever against you. I will give you until tomorrow to decide. Sarah and Mariah Lawrence, let me teach you about spiritual wifery, for I desire both of you as my spiritual wives. Heber, I am pleased that you were able to pass the test of you being willing to give your wife to me. But there is another test that you must pass, or you shall lose your apostleship and be damned. I desire your 14-year-old daughter Helen. Teach her spiritual wifery, and I will give her 24 hours to decide. Good morning, Helen. If you take this step, it will ensure your eternal salvation and exaltation, and that of your father's household and all of your kindred. Hannah, I desire to have you as my spiritual wife. Elvira, I am aware that your husband Jonathan is a good man, and will probably never waver in his loyalty to me, but I desire to have you as my spiritual wife. Rhoda, your brother Willard has suggested linking our families together. You are 58 years old and unmarried. What would you say to becoming my spiritual wife? Desdemona, I desire to have you as my spiritual wife. But don't tell Emma. She'd poison you if she could. Olive, there is a great and important mission allotted to women. In the perfect plan of this gospel dispensation, it is important that you do your part in this good work. Accept me as your king, and you shall be queen by my side. Melissa Lott, as you have been living and working in my home, I have noticed your striking beauty. I desire to have you as my spiritual wife, in very deed. I will send Eliza, Elvira, Elizabeth Whitney, and Elizabeth Durfee to convince you of it. Nancy, although you are but 14, I desire to have you as my spiritual wife. So, Fanny, you say you don't want to get to the Celestial Kingdom? And you don't want a companion of any kind? You talk very foolishly. You do not know what you will want. Here, Brother Brigham, you seal this lady to me. All of the stories and direct quotes come from Todd Compton's In Sacred Loneliness.